So a couple of the series of videos that I've got coming up focuses on how I've had to adapt what I do in terms of the knowledge that I have and the way that I do things. Working in social housing previously, I had the benefit of having access to an asset management database. So before I went to a property, if I needed, I would already have access to the building materials, I'd have access to an asbestos register, and I'd also have a pretty good knowledge of the buildings themselves from having visited neighbouring ones. With what I'm doing now, I'm going to homes and properties I've never been to before, and I don't have access to that information, so I've had to develop some different skills to reassure myself and clients of what is going on. So in this particular building, it is a 1920s 30s church building, and there's a few issues going on, but I'm just focusing on the rainwater goods here. So here we can see that this is very clearly a white PVC gutter and downpipe, and I can see that the first issue is that this charges directly onto the ground, which could be a bit of a risk. It will eventually run down, and there is a channel that comes across here. But actually, if we go round to the inside wall, it is a cavity wall, so there should be some level of protection, but we can see that there is some dampness rising up the stairs here. But it is also an unheated area, so there's lots of other things. If we look round, it's very clear that parts of this area is actually, the ground level is higher, but that's not the focus today. What the focus is this section here. It's also a white downpipe, and if it had been in good condition, it would possibly be easy to miss what the actual construction material is. But in this case, it wasn't in good condition, so it did draw my attention to it. And what I can see is that it clearly isn't a PVC downpipe, and also I can see that there's a mix of issues going on here. We can see it's in poor condition. There is a hole in this lower section which has to be flagged, but it's not going to be as simple as there's a hole in the downpipe and it needs to be replaced, because there's some extra risks. There are some surveyors out there, I'm sure, who will have the experience and the knowledge to be able to tap both parts of it and be able to say conclusively which each one is, just because you do develop abilities to be able to hear different things, but that's not something that's within my skill set yet. But I am aware of tips that are out there that I've been given. So in this case, the top part, I'm going to put, this isn't for checking the level, but this has a magnet on the side, and we can see that the magnet's holding there, so we know that that's a metal downpipe. But on this lower section, it's not going to stick because this is a cement downpipe, possibly asbestos. So the whole point of this is that by doing these extra investigations, I've been able to highlight for the client that this section of the downpipe does need to be renewed, but there are going to be additional costs because it is potentially asbestos. So either they need to get some testing done, or they can assume that it does contain asbestos and make arrangements on that basis. And when that happens, they do need to factor in additional costs, possibly double the labour, and also disposal costs because of the asbestos containing material. So it's not necessarily a deal breaker for all buyers, but being aware of those risks and costs helps them just to plan, because in this case there is plan for development, turning the church building into residential.